Previously on Christmas in Maplewood, Katie Hartwell's return home stirred memories she thought she'd left behind and feelings she wasn't ready to face. Now, as Maplewood prepares for its brightest night of the season, new sparks begin to flicker and old truths wait quietly beneath the winter lights. This is episode 2, Winter Lights. Katie woke to the soft sound of snow tapping gently against her bedroom window. The world outside was washed in pale morning light, the kind that made everything look quiet and softened at the edges. For a moment, she lay still, letting the warmth of her quilt wrap around her, and letting last night replay in her mind. The cafe, the lights, the overlook. Michael. Her chest warmed involuntarily. She tried to push the smile off her face, but it stayed anyway. Downstairs, the house was already alive with the weekend buzz. Maggie hummed Christmas carols with absolutely no concept of volume control. Something smelled like cinnamon. The floorboards creaked with familiar footsteps. Katie tugged on a cozy sweater and headed down. Emily was at the table, wrapped in a blanket like a burrito, staring at her coffee as if it had personally offended her. She looked up the moment Katie stepped into the kitchen, and her expression sharpened like a cat spotting a mouse. "Oh ho," Emily said, sitting up straighter. "Someone slept well." Katie rolled her eyes and grabbed a mug. "Good morning to you, too." "That's not a denial," Emily teased. Maggie swooped in with a plate of cinnamon rolls. "Sweetheart, you look radiant today." "Mom," Katie groaned, pouring coffee. "Please don't use the word radiant before I've had caffeine." Maggie winked. "I'm just saying. Some people glow when they've had a wonderful evening." Emily pointed dramatically with her spoon. "See? Even she sees it." Katie tried not to smile, but her mouth betrayed her. Emily gasped and nearly dropped her mug. "Oh my gosh, you are glowing." Katie pinched the bridge of her nose. "Okay, absolutely not. It was coffee and catching up, that's it." Emily leaned forward. "Did he kiss you?" "No." "Did he try?" "No." "Did you try?" "Emily." Maggie waved a hand airily. "Leave her alone, Em. Not everything needs to be a headline." Emily shrugged, unconvinced. "All I'm saying is, I haven't seen you this happy in a while." Katie froze for just a second. Happy. Had she been happy last night? Yes, unexpectedly so. Tom shuffled into the kitchen, wrapped in his flannel robe and moving steadily. A good day. "Morning, girls," he said, settling at the table. He studied Katie for a second. "Someone's in a good mood." Katie threw her hands up. "Oh, come on!" The room burst into laughter. But Tom's smile held a softness the other two didn't, one that told her he wasn't teasing. He was glad, really glad. He reached for a cinnamon roll. "You planning to meet Michael again today?" Katie felt her pulse skip. "We talked about maybe grabbing lunch or helping with the festival." Tom nodded warmly. "He's a good man." Katie swallowed, feeling a tug in her chest. "Yeah, he really is." Maggie slid a warm plate toward her. "Eat up, sweetheart. You'll need your strength if you're spending the day running around with that boy." Katie buried her face in her hands. "Oh my gosh." But under the embarrassment, something else was blooming. A flutter she couldn't hide, a warmth she didn't want to, and the quiet, hopeful whisper of a thought she wasn't ready to name. Maybe she really was happy. She sipped her coffee, letting the cinnamon-sweet warmth fill her. Outside, the snow continued falling softly, blanketing Maplewood in light. And for the first time in a long time, Katie felt like she was right where she was meant to be. The snow had eased into a lazy drift by the time Katie walked into town. The path from her parents' house wound downhill past familiar mailboxes and porch decorations, white lights, wreaths tied with red bows, wooden reindeer that had definitely seen better years, but still stood proudly on frosted lawns. Her boots crunched softly as she walked, breath puffing in pale clouds before her. The closer she got to the square, the louder the hum of Maplewood became, laughter, the scrape of ladders, the jingle of garlands being shaken free of snow. When she stepped onto Main Street, it felt like stepping directly into the heart of Christmas. Volunteers bustled everywhere, hanging lights and arranging pine boughs. The Maplewood Cafe had a line out the door. Children held cups of cocoa with whipped cream piled impossibly high, and strings of bells jingled every time someone stepped through the bakery's front door. Katie took it all in with a full, warm heart, but her eyes instinctively looked for one person. She spotted him almost immediately. Michael was by the main Christmas tree, talking with a group of volunteers. He wore a deep green jacket dusted with snow and a beanie pulled low over his ears. His cheeks were flushed from working outside, and he had that focused expression he always wore when he was trying to do 10 things at once, but still somehow managed to make everyone around him feel seen. She slowed without meaning to. He looked so at home here, guiding volunteers, offering encouraging smiles, adjusting decorations with gentle care. A few people waved to him as they passed, and he greeted every one of them with that soft, friendly calm that had always been his. He looked up, and the moment his eyes found Katie, something warm flickered across his face, softening him instantly. He excused himself from the group and crossed the snow toward her. "Hey," he said, and his breath fogged the air between them. "You made it." Katie tried very hard not to smile too widely. "I did. Looks like you've got a whole army working out here." "Yeah." He glanced around, pride settling into his expression. "The town really shows up for stuff like this. It's kind of my favorite part of the season." "Mine too," she admitted. A volunteer jogged past with a tangled strand of lights, shouting, "Mike, tell me you have the patience to fix this again." Michael laughed. "Give me 5 minutes." The volunteer saluted dramatically before nearly tripping over a wreath. Michael shook his head, smiling as he looked back at Katie. "It's chaos, but the good kind." Katie tucked her hands into her coat pockets. "Need help?" His eyes lit up. "Actually, yeah, really do." He led her over toward the row of wooden booths being decorated for the festival. Handmade signs leaned nearby. Cocoa Corner, Mistletoe Market, Wreathwork Shop. They were painted with charm rather than skill, which only made them more endearing. "Here," Michael said, handing her a bundle of ribbon. "We're trying to add bows to the tops of the garlands. I swear this looked easier in my head." She held up a bow that had been tied lopsidedly. "Is this one yours?" Michael snorted. "Unfortunately, yes." Katie burst into laughter, loud and genuine, and Michael watched her with a softness that made her heart flutter. She moved closer to help him retie it properly. Their gloved hands brushed, and though the fabric dulled the touch, Katie still felt it, warmth beneath the winter. When she stepped back, the bow sat neatly in place. "See," she said, "all it needed was someone who's not bow challenged." Michael placed a hand dramatically over his heart. "Wow. Harsh." They continued working together, tying ribbons, straightening garlands, brushing snow off wooden shelves. Every few minutes, someone would call Michael's name, asking about a string of lights, needing help reaching something, wanting his opinion on ornament placement. And every single time he went, patiently, kindly, without hesitation. Katie watched him, the rhythm of it all soothing and strangely comforting. This was Michael. This was who he was, who he had always been. A voice called from behind one of the booths. "Hale, can you give me a hand with this sign?" Michael turned, then looked at her with that quiet smile again. "I'll be right back." "Go," she said, waving him on. "I'll try not to mess up too many bows while you're gone." He laughed and jogged off. Katie watched him help lift a heavy wooden sign onto a hook, directing the group gently but confidently. Snow fell into his hair, and he shook it free with a little smile as the group cheered when the sign finally sat level. Something in her chest squeezed. He belonged here, in this town, with these people, in this moment, and maybe with her. Katie hugged her arms around herself, suddenly warm from the inside out. She wasn't just remembering the Michael she used to love, she was seeing the man he'd grown into. And she liked him, more than she expected. The volunteer with the tangled lights passed her again, muttering something about holiday sabotage. Katie laughed and helped him detangle it as best she could. Michael returned a moment later, brushing snow from his gloves. "Think you can handle bows and lights?" "I'm multi-talented," she said. "Oh, I know," he replied softly. Her heart skipped. The festival square buzzed around them, warm, loud, joyful, but somehow, standing here with Michael, Katie felt like the world had slowed to a comfortable, familiar pace. Like coming home could actually feel like this, easy, warm, right. The afternoon softened into a gentle silver light as Katie and Michael worked side by side. Snowflakes floated lazily around them, catching in the garland and string lights like tiny stars. The air smelled like pine and cinnamon, drifting over from a nearby booth where someone was baking cookies for the volunteers. Katie adjusted a strand of lights along the side of a wooden booth. "Higher?" she asked. Michael stepped back, squinting. "A little. Just a hair." She lifted it. "Nope, too much," he said, grimacing playfully. "Back down, half an inch." Katie lowered it, rolling her eyes. "You should have been an architect. Overseeing the placement of holiday lights is as far as my authority goes." She laughed. "You say that like it's not a vital town role." "Oh, it is," he said seriously. "If these lights are crooked, people talk." Katie snorted. "Wow, scandalous!" Michael shot her a grin that made her stomach flip unexpectedly. They moved to another booth, this one painted a cheerful red, trimmed with evergreen boughs. Katie noticed the woodwork along the edges, carefully smoothed lines, tight joints, little carved notches for decoration. She ran a glove along the side. "These are nicer than I expected," she said. "They look new." "Yeah," Michael replied, looping garland over a nail. "We rebuilt a few of them this year." "We?" "You know, me, Caleb, some of the volunteers." He shrugged lightly, matter of fact. "Caleb did most of the detail work. He's good with this stuff." Michael touched her elbow gently. "Help me with this one." She followed him to the next booth, holding the end of a light strand while he stretched it upward. He reached over her shoulder to secure it in place, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him even through winter layers. Katie's breath caught. Not loudly, not obviously, but enough that she felt the moment shift in her chest. Michael must have felt it too, because he lowered his hand a little slower than before. They stepped back at the same time to survey their work, bumping lightly into each other. Katie turned instinctively to apologize, and suddenly they were closer than she expected. Close enough to see small snowflakes melting on his eyelashes. Her heart did something stupidly soft. Michael cleared his throat. Sorry." "You're fine," she said, and her voice came out breathier than she meant. They stood there for a beat too long, neither moving, the air warm between them despite the cold. The sound of laughing kids, rustling garland, and workers clattering tools faded into a gentle hum around them. Michael broke the moment with a soft laugh. "You know, we always made a good team." Katie felt her cheeks warm. "We did." "Still do," he added, quieter. She looked away before she melted into a puddle right there in the snow. "Well, the bows aren't crooked, so I guess that's a win." "A huge win," he said dramatically. "You clearly carried us." "And you tied at least one bow that wasn't terrible," she teased. His eyebrows lifted. "One? Only one?" She held up a gloved hand. "Oh, don't push your luck." They moved on, settling into a rhythm, her tying ribbons, him hanging lights, both chatting easily about old Maplewood traditions and silly memories from high school. Every so often they shared a laugh too loud, or stood too close too long, or exchanged a glance that held more warmth than either of them commented on. As they worked, a small group of older residents passed by, Mrs. Turner among them. "Well now," she said, raising an eyebrow, "this looks familiar." Michael flushed instantly. "Mrs. Turner, please." She chuckled. "I'm just saying, those two always were the sweetest together." Katie felt her cheeks go warm. Michael rubbed the back of his neck. "We're just, helping with decorations." "Of course you are," Mrs. Turner said knowingly before walking on. Katie shook her head with a smile. She hasn't changed at all. Unfortunately, Michael joked, she's still the town's official gossip. Everyone else is unofficial gossip, Katie said, and they both laughed. A fresh strand of snow floated down, dusting their coats, settling in Michael's hair. Katie watched him for a moment longer than she meant to. Watched the way he smiled, the way he listened, the way he looked at her like she mattered, right here, right now. For a moment, the world narrowed to the soft glow of lights, the quiet winter air, and the simple truth rising in her chest. She was falling back into something she thought she'd left behind. Michael brushed the snow from his sleeves. Ready for the next part? Katie blinked back to the moment. Next part? He grinned, eyes warming. Come on, you'll see. And before she could ask anything else, he was already walking ahead, leaving her to follow with her heart beating just a little faster. Katie followed Michael toward the main path of the square, brushing fresh snowflakes from her coat. The booths around them glowed with early afternoon light, garlands swaying gently in the breeze. It already looked like Christmas could crackle to life at any moment. She was just catching up to Michael when she heard a familiar voice call out, "There she is! The prodigal daughter!" Katie turned to see her father walking toward them with Maggie tucked under his arm, Emily skipping behind them with 2 cups of cocoa. Tom looked steadier today, brighter, more himself than he had in months, and the sight made Katie's chest warm instantly. "Dad," she said, hurrying over to hug him. "You shouldn't be out in the cold too long." Tom waved her off. "Your mother and sister have me wrapped in enough scarves to insulate a small cabin. I'm fine." Maggie grinned. "He insisted on coming down to see you in the festival work." Emily handed Katie a cocoa. "Bribe for manual labor." Katie laughed. "I'll take it." Michael stepped closer, smiling softly. "Good to see you, Tom. You're looking great today." Tom patted his shoulder. "Taking it one day at a time. And I hear you're the one keeping this whole festival from collapsing." Michael laughed. "Hardly. Just doing my part." "And doing it well," Maggie added. Tom's eyes twinkled as he reached into the reusable shopping bag he carried. "Actually, I came down here for something specific." He pulled out a small wooden object wrapped in a dish towel. Katie tilted her head. "What's that?" Tom unwrapped it to reveal a partially carved wooden star, rough around the edges, a little uneven, but unmistakably made with care. Katie's face lit up. "Dad, did you make that?" He shrugged sheepishly. "Trying to." Then added, with a soft chuckle, "It's getting there." Maggie beamed with pride. "He's been working on it every evening." Tom nodded. "Figured the big tree could use a new topper this year, something homemade." Katie turned the star over in her hands, smiling. "Dad, it's wonderful." "Well," Tom said, rubbing the back of his neck, "I did have a little help." Emily smirked. "A little?" Tom laughed. "Fine, a lot of help." Katie raised an eyebrow. "From who?" Tom nodded toward the far end of the square, where a few volunteers were sorting planks of wood near a tool cart. "Caleb's been giving me a hand with it," he said lightly. "Kid's got real skill. Picked it up from his dad. He showed me how to clean up the edges, how to keep the cuts straight, been patient with me through the whole thing." "That's really kind of him," she said genuinely before handing the star back carefully. "You're doing great with it. I can't wait to see the final version." Tom held the star with a quiet pride. "Thanks, sweetheart." Michael smiled at the scene, genuinely pleased. Tom's basically mastering woodworking at this point. Caleb might have competition. Tom snorted. "Don't give him ideas. He'll make me build an entire booth next." Everyone laughed. Katie felt a soft, contented glow inside her. This, family, laughter, snow, the smell of cocoa, felt like the heart of Maplewood. It made something in her settle, warm, and steady. After a few more minutes of chatting, Maggie waved her hands toward the shops. "All right, I need to pick up a few things before tonight. Emily, keep your father from buying kettle corn for the 4th time this week. Emily groaned. It was 1 time. It was 3, Tom said. Katie laughed as they drifted off, leaving her alone with Michael again. He turned to her, that warm smile returning. Ready for the next adventure. She tightened her scarf, feeling a small thrill. Lead the way. By the time they reached the center of the square again, the ice rink had filled with people. Kids wobbling on skates, teens gliding confidently, adults clinging to the railings with varying degrees of dignity. Christmas music played softly over the speakers, blending with laughter, scraping blades, and the occasional thud of someone falling. Katie blinked at the sparkling ice. Oh no, I haven't skated in years. Michael grinned. Perfect, then we'll be evenly matched. She gave him a skeptical look. You? Bad at skating? Terrible, he said solemnly. Embarrassingly terrible. Katie raised her eyebrows. You've never been terrible at anything athletic? Michael shrugged casually. Maybe I'm making myself look bad so you won't feel self-conscious. Oh, that's sweet, she said. And a lie. It is, he admitted, laughing. They rented skates from a booth, decorated with twinkling lights, then found a bench near the rink to lace up. Michael finished his boots quickly, then waited patiently as Katie tried to wrestle her laces into something resembling tightness. You want help? He asked, amusement dancing in his eyes. No, she said immediately, then 5 seconds later sighing, yes. Michael knelt in front of her, easily looping the laces and pulling them snug. His hands brushed lightly against her ankle, sending a gentle thrill up her spine. He tied a neat bow and sat back. There, he said. Structural integrity restored. Katie laughed, trying not to stare at him too long. Thank you. They stepped onto the ice hand in hand simply because Katie needed stability. At least that's what she told herself. Whoa. Okay, nope. Hold on, she said immediately as her feet slid in opposite directions. Michael steadied her instantly. I got you. Her heart fluttered. They started slow circles around the rink, Michael keeping her upright with a firm but gentle grip on her hands. Katie clung to him in a way that would have embarrassed her if she wasn't laughing breathlessly. You're doing great, he said. Don't patronize me. I'm not, he insisted. You've only almost fallen 5 times. She snorted. We've been on the ice for 1 minute. Record-breaking, he said. Katie rolled her eyes, but her smile was impossible to hide. As they found a rhythm, her steps became steadier. The cold air tingled on her cheeks, her breath puffed out in clouds. The music felt soft and magical, drifting across the sparkling rink. And Michael stayed close, always close. At one point, a small child skated by at full speed, nearly taking Katie's legs out. She gasped, arms flailing, but Michael caught her around the waist with quick, sure hands. Gotcha, he murmured. Her breath stuck in her throat. They were close now, closer than they'd been all day. Their faces were only inches apart. Katie could feel his warmth, see the softness in his eyes, notice the snow caught in his hair. For a moment, time held its breath, and then Katie looked away, flustered. I think I need the rail. Michael chuckled softly. No problem. They skated to the edge, where Katie clung gratefully to the railing. Michael leaned beside her, brushing snow off his shoulders. That wasn't so bad, he said. It was absolutely terrible, she corrected. But fun. He smiled. Good. That was the goal. They skated a little longer, Katie improving, Michael teasing her gently, both of them slipping into a comfortable old rhythm. It felt easy, natural, like something familiar was returning, piece by piece. Eventually, they stepped off the rink, laughing as they stumbled in their skates. They sat on a bench to untie their boots. Katie's cheeks were pink from the cold. Michael's hair was mussed from the wind. That was great, Katie said, breathless. I forgot how nice it is to do something so simple. Michael nodded. I've missed that too. She looked at him. Yeah? Yeah, he said, eyes warm. Sometimes you don't know you're missing something until you feel it again. Katie's chest tightened, full of quiet, hopeful ache. She didn't trust herself to say anything without revealing too much, so she looked back down at her boots and exhaled slowly. When they stood, the rink behind them was glowing with golden lights strung between the trees. Snow fell softly in the background. Michael offered his hand again, not because she needed help walking this time, but simply because he wanted to. Katie hesitated just long enough to feel the moment and then slipped her hand into his. Warm, steady, familiar. A spark. Ready for one more stop? Michael asked. She nodded. Always. By the time Michael parked the truck near the edge of the square, Maplewood had transformed into something out of a storybook. The snow had thickened into a gentle, glittering curtain, floating slowly beneath the glow of hundreds of twinkling lights. People gathered with warm drinks in hand, bundled up in scarves and mittens, faces flushed with cold and excitement. Children ran between the booths, their laughter carrying through the air. Older couples leaned together, whispering fond memories of lighting ceremonies past. The town choir began assembling near the gazebo, their voices warming up in soft, rising harmony. Katie stepped out of the truck and felt it immediately. That spark of wonder, that unmistakable Maplewood magic. Michael walked beside her, close enough that their arms brushed. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded, taking in the crowd, the lights, the swell of music. Yeah, this is really beautiful. Michael watched her more than the scenery. His smile warmed the cold air. Come on, he said, let's get closer. They moved through the crowd, weaving between families and familiar faces. Several people waved, greeting Michael with cheerful calls. Evening, Mike. Great work today. Thanks for the help earlier. Katie noticed the way he responded to every single one of them. Humble, warm, patient. This town adored him, and she could see why. They stopped near the front, just as the mayor stepped up to the microphone on the small stage. All right, Maplewood, the mayor called, cheerful and booming. Thank you all for coming out tonight for the 42nd annual lighting of the square. Cheers rose from the crowd. Katie glanced at Michael and found him already looking at her. Her breath caught. He gave a small, shy smile, the kind he used to give her before saying something that mattered. Remember how we used to stand right here? He murmured. Katie swallowed. Yeah, every year. We never missed one, he said quietly. No, she whispered. We didn't. Something warm bloomed in her chest. The mayor continued speaking, but Katie barely heard a word. The energy around her softened, blurring slightly, like the rest of the town had dimmed and she was seeing only him. Michael leaned a little closer, his shoulder brushing hers. I'm really glad you're here tonight. Katie's heart raced. Me too. A soft hush fell over the crowd as the countdown began. All right, Maplewood, let's bring the magic to life. Starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The lights exploded to life. Every booth, every rooftop, every tree burst into warm, golden illumination. The giant evergreen in the center sparkled with thousands of lights and ornaments. The square glowed, shimmering across the snowy ground and reflecting in the faces of everyone watching. Gasps and cheers filled the air. Katie's eyes widened, breath catching in her throat. It's stunning, she whispered. Michael looked at her, not the lights, like he was memorizing the moment. You should see your face, he murmured. Katie felt her cheeks flush. Stop. No, he said, smiling softly. You look... God, Katie, you look happy. I am, she said without thinking. Michael's expression shifted. Something warm, something hopeful, something that felt like a promise wanting to form. He stepped closer. Katie could feel his breath in the cold air. Her heart pounded. The lights glowed around them, thousands of tiny stars. Katie, he said quietly. Everything else faded. The cheers, the music, the snowfall, just him, just them. He leaned in, just a little, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, close enough that she felt the moment rising between them like a held breath. Katie! A voice called from somewhere behind them. Katie blinked, startled, stepping back instinctively. Michael straightened as they both turned. Maggie waved emphatically from the cookie booth. "Sweetheart, do you want gingerbread? They're fresh." Katie felt heat flood her cheeks. Michael rubbed the back of his neck, laughing softly. "Timing," he muttered under his breath. Katie swallowed, still breathless. "Yeah, terrible timing." Their eyes met again, warm, flustered, full of something unspoken. The moment hadn't vanished. It had only paused. Michael nodded gently toward Maggie. "Go on. She'll chase us through the square if you don't." Katie laughed, the tension melting into warmth. "You're probably right." As she walked toward her mother, she felt Michael's gaze follow her, and she stole one look back. There he stood, hands in his pockets, snow settling in his hair, the golden lights reflecting softly in his eyes. And Katie felt it stronger than ever. She was falling for him again, hard. By the time Katie found her way back to the family's gathering spot, Maggie had loaded her with gingerbread cookies. Emily was on her second cup of cocoa, and Tom was standing with hands tucked into his coat pockets, soaking in the glow of the lit square. The crowd buzzed with excitement, neighbors greeting each other, little kids showing off their newly purchased ornaments, bundled couples sharing scarves and mittens. Katie moved through the warmth of it all, but her mind was still wrapped in the moment she'd nearly had with Michael. Her pulse hadn't quite settled. Her hands still felt warm from where he'd held them. Her heart carried a softness she didn't want to shake. Maggie looped her arm through Katie's. "Come on, sweetheart, giving night's about to start." They made their way toward the center of the square, where small tables were arranged, each holding baskets of handmade gifts wrapped in simple paper and twine. Giving night had always been one of Katie's favorite Maplewood traditions, a night where every family exchanged small, meaningful presents, homemade, heartfelt, never expensive. Tom took a seat on a nearby bench. "I used to love this when you girls were little," he said, smiling at the memory. "You two always made the messiest gifts." Emily nudged him. "That was Katie's fault." "It absolutely was not," Katie argued. Maggie sighed fondly. "It was absolutely both of you." The church choir began singing softly in the background, gentle harmonies blending with the falling snow. As people started exchanging gifts, laughter echoed across the square. A woman received a knitted scarf. A boy proudly handed over a birdhouse painted with wobbly stars. A couple traded handwritten poems. Katie's heart tugged warmly. This was Maplewood at its best. Authentic, honest, good. Emily handed her a small wrapped package. "Here, don't get emotional. It'll ruin my reputation." Katie laughed. "I make no promises." She unwrapped the gift slowly, a tiny carved ornament shaped like a pine tree, imperfect but charming, with a little heart etched into the base. "Oh, Katie whispered, touched. "I love it." Emily shrugged with faux nonchalance. "Whatever. I had time." But there was love in her smile. As Katie tucked the ornament into her coat pocket, her eyes drifted across the square, searching almost unconsciously. She found him near the tree. Michael was talking with volunteers, collecting leftover wrapping materials, helping an elderly neighbor tie a scarf more securely. Every movement was gentle, thoughtful, unforced. And then, as if sensing her, he looked up. Their eyes met across the glowing square. The moment held, warm, electric, everything quiet inside her chest. Katie touched the edge of the ornament in her pocket and felt her heart steady. She remembered the letters. Every line, every tender word, every piece of the boy she thought she'd lost, and was now seeing reflected in the man standing before her. Michael excused himself from the group and walked toward her. Snow glinted in his hair, lights reflecting softly in his eyes. "Hey," he said, stopping in front of her. "Hey. Everything all right?" She nodded, looking around the square. "It's beautiful, better than I remember." Michael exhaled softly, relief flickering through his eyes. "I'm glad." They stood there, side by side, watching neighbors exchange their gifts. Children ran past them with bells. The choir's voices rose into the cold air, harmonies blending with the flutter of snow. Katie felt something swell in her chest, quiet but certain. "This is my favorite Maplewood tradition," she said softly. Michael looked at her gently. "Mine too." Katie hesitated, then added, "I forgot how much this place meant to me." Michael nodded slowly. "Sometimes it takes coming back to remember." The warmth in his voice melted something inside her. "Katie," he said, barely above the music, "tonight meant a lot, having you here." Her breath caught. "It meant a lot to me, too." Another moment passed, soft, unspoken, full of something real. Then Maggie called from behind them, waving a thermos. "Hot cider! Come before it's gone!" Michael stepped back slightly, offering Katie the choice. She smiled, small, shy, filled with something new and real. "I'll be right there." He nodded, understanding lingering in his eyes. "See you in a minute." Katie watched him walk back toward the tree, the snow settling in the folds of his jacket, the lights catching in his hair, and in her heart, a certainty swelled. This wasn't nostalgia. It wasn't a passing holiday spark. She was falling in love again. With him, with the letters, with the life she once imagined. Tonight wasn't just tradition, it was a promise. A quiet one, a hopeful one. And Katie felt ready to follow it. Thank you for listening to Christmas in Maplewood. As the festival night fades and winter settles in, Katie's heart is beginning to open. But not everything in Maplewood is as simple as it seems. Join us next time for episode 3.